Let me go to Barney, who's got a question online here, live question. Thank you, Barney. It says, we have a debate in our church. Which was the kingdom of the Old Testament? What was the kingdom of the Old Testament that the Old Testament prophets were looking for, the millennial kingdom or the eternal kingdom? Very good question. So let me reword that a little bit and just say, were the Old Testament prophets looking for a millennial or an eternal kingdom? And the answer, I'm going to say, is yes. But really, they were looking for an eternal kingdom. In fact, if we were to look, you might check, I believe it's Daniel chapter 2, verse 44. And it says, in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. Now, that never be destroyed, that is, I believe, repeated a number of times, like in Daniel chapter 4, verse 23, in that the king saw an angelic watcher, a holy one, descending from heaven and saying, chop down this tree, yet leave a stump with its roots in the ground, with a band of iron and a bronze around it, and new grass in the field, and let him be drenched with dew, and let him share the beasts. Excuse me, that's not the passage I thought it was. How about that? But Daniel 6:26, I will make a decree that in all the dominion of my kingdom, men are to fear and tremble before the God of Daniel. He is the living God and enduring forever. His kingdom is one which will not be destroyed. His dominion will be forever. And Daniel 7:14 also is another one that speaks of this forever or eternal kingdom. And clearly from the prophet Daniel, and I think also you could look into Isaiah and Ezekiel, and you see that they are looking for an eternal kingdom. Now, back to Daniel 2, verse 44, this kingdom will break in pieces and consume all kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Now, this means that the kingdom is one which cannot be injured or cannot be destroyed in any way. There's not any, 3 steps forward and 2 steps back and 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. And I think those who believe in some kind of mystery kingdom, already not yet kingdom, have to look at this and have to reconcile this view with reality. Here is the kingdom. The church is the kingdom, they say. And yet, I would say, boy, the church in this form of the kingdom that is here today, it doesn't even appear to be the kingdom. It is being beaten down and destroyed over and over down through history. And to have this idea that it will consume all these other kingdoms, it simply has not done that. But that's not part of the question that was given here by Barney. Actually, the part of the question is, were they looking for a millennial or an eternal kingdom? Now, in the Old Testament prophets, there's actually no word about the millennium or a thousand years. There is a description of that time, and the description of that time very much lines up with what we see in the book of Revelation. It is only in the New Testament book of the Revelation that we are told of 1,000 years. Now, here's what I believe, that the kingdom of God is eternal. And the revelation about the kingdom of God that was given in the Old Testament prophets and from the Old Testament prophets was about the first 1,000 years. And in the Old Testament, it was never revealed to them what happens beyond this physical paradise here on earth that we know in the New Testament comes at 1,000 years. Now, the truth is that the kingdom goes on for eternity even after the 1,000 years. But what what is revealed to us of the kingdom is that first 1,000 years in which the wolf will lie down with the lamb and the mountains will drip with sweet wine, and all the abundance and all the providence that is given in our world today. And then at the end of the 1,000 years, there's a new heaven and a new earth. Now, that new heaven and new earth and new Jerusalem is if I can use this term, I guess, it's a remodeling of the kingdom. So it extends beyond the 1,000 years, but the only thing we know much about is the first 1,000 years. After the first 1,000 years, we know a little bit more about the new Jerusalem. That's the streets of gold and the gates of pearl that we often use to describe heaven. That's actually a description of New Jerusalem, not of heaven. And that's really about all we know. We don't know anything beyond there, except Satan has been fully destroyed, not just chained up, but fully destroyed in that time. So back to this question here, were the Old Testament prophets looking for an eternal kingdom or a millennial kingdom? The answer is yes, but the part of it that they knew about was the millennial portion of it, but they had not been given the understanding of the fact that it was that millennial period. So thank you, Barney.